Commander Daeho Kim sat in the control room of Earth's Deep Space Communications Center. The massive screens around him showed star maps and radio waves from across the galaxy. For 23 years, he had been sending messages into space. Messages of peace, messages of friendship, messages telling anyone out there that humans wanted to talk, not fight. Today was different. Today, someone had answered. The signal came from a star system 47 light-years away. It was strong, clear, and definitely not natural. Dr. Yuna Park worked at her computer nearby, trying to understand the alien language. Her fingers moved fast across the keyboard as she ran the sounds through every translation program Earth had. "Commander," she said without looking up. "I think I have something." Daeho walked over to her station. On her screen were strange symbols that looked like sharp lines and curves. Below them were words in Korean and English. "What does it say?" he asked. Yuna's face was pale. "It's not good news, sir. They call themselves the Vorthek Empire. They say they received our peaceful messages." She paused. "They think our messages are funny." Captain Taemin Lee entered the room. He was head of Earth's military defense planning. His uniform was neat and his face was serious. "Commander, we're getting reports from observatories around the world. Something big is coming toward our solar system." Daeho felt his stomach drop. "How big?" "The telescopes show at least 200 ships. Maybe more. They're still too far away to get exact numbers." Dr. Park continued working on the translation. More words appeared on her screen. Her face got even paler. "Commander, you need to hear this," she said. The message says, "Weak creatures of the third planet. Your pathetic calls for peace amuse us. We are the Vorthek Empire. We have conquered 17 star systems. We have enslaved billions of beings. You will surrender completely in 72 hours, or we will destroy your world and take the survivors as slaves. Prepare for your new masters." The room went quiet. Everyone stared at the screen. Daeho had spent his whole career trying to make contact with aliens. He had dreamed of this moment. But not like this. Captain Lee spoke first. "What are our options?" "Not many," Daeho replied. "We can't fight 200 warships. Earth doesn't have that kind of military power in space. So we surrender?" Dr. Park asked. Daeho looked at the message again. He thought about all the peaceful signals Earth had sent into space. All the music, art, and science they had shared with the universe. All the hope they had put into finding friends among the stars. "No," he said quietly. "We don't surrender." Captain Lee nodded. "I'll start getting our defenses ready." "It won't. It'll be much against 200 ships, but we'll make them work for it." "There's something else," Dr. Park said. "I've been analyzing their language patterns. The Vorthak seem to have a very rigid way of thinking. They don't understand concepts like compromise or negotiation. To them, every species is either a master or a slave, nothing in between." Daeho sat down at his command station. He looked at all the screens showing Earth's communication systems. Every satellite, every radio telescope, every transmitter on the planet was under his control. He could send a message that would reach every corner of the galaxy. "Dr. Park, prepare a transmission. Full power on all frequencies. What should I say, Commander?" Daeho thought for a moment. He looked at Captain Lee, who was already calling. "Military bases around the world." He looked at Dr. Park, who had dedicated her life to understanding other species. He thought about every human on Earth who was about to face slavery or death. "Tell them this," he said. "To the Vorthek Empire and any other species listening. You received our messages of peace and friendship. You had a choice. You could have talked to us. You could have learned about us. Instead, you chose to threaten. U.S. with slavery and death," Dr. Park typed as he spoke. The words appeared on screens around the room. "You think we are weak because we offered peace first. You think we will surrender because we tried to be friends? You are wrong. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We know how to fight. We know how to die fighting. And we know how to make our enemies pay a price they never expected." Captain Lee stopped his phone calls and listened. Around the room, technicians and scientists gathered to hear their commander's words. We gave you a chance for peace. If this is how you respond to peace, then you have chosen war. You wanted a war with humanity. Fine, you got one. But this won't be the easy conquest you expect. This won't be like the other worlds you destroyed. Deho stood up. His voice got stronger. We will fight you in space. We will fight you on our planets. We will fight you in our cities and in our homes. We will never stop fighting. And when we win, because we will win, we will make sure that every species in the galaxy knows what happens to those who threaten humanity with slavery. He paused and looked around the room. Every person there understood what was coming. They were probably all going to die. But they would die as free humans, not as slaves. This is our last peaceful transmission. After this, there will be only war. You wanted to show the galaxy what happens to species that don't surrender to you. Instead, you will show them what happens to those who underestimate humanity. They wanted a war. They got extinction. Dr. Park finished typing. She looked up at the commander. Ready to transmit, sir? Send it. Full power, every frequency. Make. Sure, everyone in the galaxy hears this. She pressed the button. Across Earth, every radio telescope and transmitter sent the message into space. It would take years to reach the farthest stars, but it would get there. Every intelligent species in the galaxy would eventually hear humanity's declaration of war. Captain Lee came over to them. Commander, I've spoken with military leaders worldwide. We're activating every defense plan we have. It's not much, but we'll be ready. How long do we have? Deho asked. Based on their speed, about 8 months before they reach Earth. 8 months to prepare for a war against an empire that had conquered 17 worlds. 8 months to turn Earth into something the Vorthak had never faced before. Deho looked at the star map one more time. Somewhere out there, the Vorthak fleet was coming to enslave or destroy humanity. They thought it would be easy. They were about to learn that humans were different from every other species they had conquered. The peaceful messages were over. Now came the war. Admiral Bong Su-cho stood on the bridge of the orbital defense station above Earth. Through the large windows, he could see the blue planet below and the stars beyond. Somewhere among those stars, the Vorthak fleet was getting closer every day. It had been 3 months since Commander Kim sent humanity's declaration of war across the galaxy. 3 months of the hardest work in human history. Every person on Earth was now part of the war effort. Admiral, called Dr. Su-jin Hong from her workstation. The new weapon systems are ready for testing. Dr. Han was Earth's best weapons scientist. Before the Vorthak threat, she had worked on peaceful projects like fusion power and space mining. Now she spent every waking hour turning human technology into weapons of war. Show me what you have, Admo Cho said. Dr. Han pointed to a display showing Earth's orbital space. We've converted 47 solar power satellites into kinetic bombardment platforms. Each one can drop metal rods at incredible speed. When they hit something, the impact is like a nuclear bomb, but without the radiation. She switched to another view. The asteroid mining ships have been turned into ram vessels. We've loaded them with nuclear warheads and programmed them to crash into enemy ships. The miners who used to operate them volunteered to pilot them manually if the remote systems fail. Admiral Cho nodded. What about ground defenses? Colonel Nam is handling that, Dr. Han replied. Colonel Ji-woo Nam entered the command center. Right on time. She was in charge of preparing Earth's population for invasion. Her job was to make sure that if the Vorthak landed on Earth, they would face the fiercest resistance possible. Admiral, she said, civilian training is going better than expected. We have 15 million people trained in basic combat. Every major city now has hidden weapon caches and food supplies. If the aliens land, they'll find that every neighborhood is ready for guerrilla warfare. She activated a holographic display showing a city map. Red dots marked hidden supply depots and weapons caches. Blue lines showed underground tunnel systems that had been expanded and connected. The key is making them fight for every building, every street, every room. We've studied every successful resistance movement in human history. The Vorthak may have superior technology, but they've never faced anything like this. Admiral Cho walked to the main tactical display. It showed Earth's entire defensive network. Military bases, civilian shelters, weapon platforms, and communication systems were all connected in a web of preparation. "How many ships do we have?" he asked. 47 combat vessels, Colonel Nam replied. "Most of them are converted civilian ships. Against 200 Vorthak warships, it's not enough for a direct fight." "Then we don't fight them directly," the Admiral said. "Dr. Han, tell me about the asteroid belt plan." Dr. Han smiled for the first time in months. "We've hidden weapon platforms throughout the asteroid belt. They look like ordinary rocks from the outside. When the Vorthak fleet passes through, they'll find themselves in the middle of a minefield they can't see. The mining tunnels in the asteroids have been converted into bases," Colonel Nam added. "Small fighter ships can hide there and launch surprise attacks. The Vorthak will think they're fighting empty space until our fighters appear right next to their ships." Admiral Cho studied the tactical display. Humanity's plan was complex and dangerous. Instead of meeting the enemy in open battle, they would use hit-and-run tactics. Make the Vorthak fleet spread out to search for hidden bases. Force them to fight in small groups instead of using their superior numbers. "What about intelligence?" he asked. Dr. Han pulled up another screen. "We've been analyzing every signal from their fleet. Their communication patterns suggest they're not used to coordinated resistance. Most of the species they conquered surrendered quickly or fought unorganized battles. Their tactical formations are designed for intimidation rather than efficiency." Colonel Nam noted. "They fly in straight lines and use overwhelming firepower. It works against enemies who panic, but it leaves them vulnerable to coordinated attacks from multiple directions." The Admiral looked out at the stars again. In 5 months, those distant points of light would be filled with enemy warships. Ships carrying weapons that could destroy cities. Ships crewed by aliens who saw humans as nothing more than potential slaves. "There's something else we need to discuss," Dr. Han said quietly. "Protocol Ragnarok." The room went silent. Protocol Ragnarok was Earth's final backup plan. If humanity was about to lose the war completely, they would activate every nuclear weapon on the planet. Not to attack the enemy, but to deny them their prize. The Vorthak would find nothing but a radioactive wasteland instead of a planet full of slaves. "The Psychological Warfare Division has been working on this," Colonel Nam said. "We want the Vorthak to know about Protocol Ragnarok. We want them to understand that humans would rather die than be enslaved. It might make them more cautious," Admiral Cho considered this, "or it might make them more determined to destroy us quickly. Either way," Dr. Han said, "it sends a message to other species. If the Vorthak want to conquer the galaxy, they'll have to deal with worlds that would rather burn than surrender." A communication officer approached them. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from our deep space monitoring stations. The Vorthak fleet has been spotted passing the Centauri system. They'll be here in approximately 5 months. 5 months. Admiral Cho thought about all the preparation that still needed to be done, every weapon that needed to be built, every defensive position that needed to be prepared, every civilian who needed to be trained. "Send word to all defense coordinators," he ordered. "Final phase preparation begins now. No one sleeps until we're ready." Dr. Han returned to her workstation. "Admiral, there's one more thing. We've been working on a project to turn the entertainment and communication networks into military coordination systems. If the Vorthak try to jam our military communications, we can use civilian networks to coordinate resistance." "Everything becomes a weapon," Colonel Nam agreed. "Every satellite, every radio tower, every computer network. The Vorthak think they're invading a single planet. They're actually attacking an entire civilization that's been preparing for war for most of its history." Admiral Cho looked at his staff. These people had worked without rest for 3 months. They would work without rest for 5 more months. And when the Vorthek arrived, they would fight without rest until either humanity was free or humanity was extinct. The Vorthek have conquered 17 worlds, he said, but they've never fought humans before. They expect us to be like the other species they've defeated. Scared, disorganized, and quick to surrender. He pointed to the tactical display showing Earth's defenses. Instead, they're going to find a species that has been fighting wars for thousands of years. A species that knows how to turn every disadvantage into an advantage. A species that would rather die fighting than live as slaves. The communication officer spoke again. Admiral, we're also receiving signals from some of the Vorthek's conquered worlds. It seems our declaration of war has reached them. There are reports of resistance movements starting up on several planets. Admiral Cho smiled grimly. Good. Let the Vorthek fight wars on multiple fronts. Let them learn that threatening humanity was the biggest mistake their empire ever made. Outside the windows, Earth continued its ancient rotation. Cities glowed with lights in the darkness. Millions of people went about their daily lives, but now every one of them was part of the war effort. Farmers grew food for the military factory. Workers built weapons. Children learned to hide and fight. The Vorthek were coming to conquer what they thought was a weak, peaceful world. Instead, they would find a planet that had transformed itself into a fortress. A civilization that had chosen war over slavery. The gathering storm was almost ready to break. Major Hyan Wukong checked his fighters' weapons one last time. Around him, 46 other pilots did the same in their small, fast ships. They were hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid, waiting for the moment that would change everything. The Vorthek fleet had arrived. Through his cockpit window, Major Kong could see the enemy ships in the distance. They were massive, dark vessels that blotted out the stars. 200 warships arranged in perfect formation, moving through space like they owned it. All fighter squadrons, this is Control, came the voice in his headset. The enemy fleet is entering the asteroid belt. Wait for my signal. Major Kong had been a fighter pilot for 12 years. He had flown in training exercises and patrol missions around Earth's solar system. But this was his first real battle, his first chance to fight an enemy that wanted to enslave his entire species. The Vorthek ships moved slowly through the asteroid field. Their sensors swept back and forth looking for threats, but they were looking for military bases and weapon platforms. They weren't looking for modified mining charges attached to ordinary rocks. Control to all units, the radio crackled. Initiate. Mining charge detonation in 3.2.1. Across the asteroid belt, thousands of small explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. Rocks that had been floating peacefully for millions of years suddenly became weapons. The explosions sent chunks of stone and metal flying at incredible speeds toward the Vorthek ships. The alien vessel's shields absorbed most of the impacts, but not all. Several ships suffered damage to their outer hulls. More importantly, the explosions forced the fleet to break formation and spread out to avoid further impacts. All fighter squadrons launch. Came the command. Major Kong fired his engines and shot out of the asteroid base. Around him, hundreds of other fighters did the same. They had been hidden in dozens of asteroids throughout the belt, waiting for this moment. The Vorthek had expected to fight Earth's small fleet in open space. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by swarms of small, fast fighters appearing from every direction. Target their engine sections, Major Kong called to his squadron. We can't destroy these ships, but we can slow them down. His fighter screamed through space toward the nearest Vorthek vessel. It was 10 times larger than his ship, covered in weapons that could vaporize him in seconds. But it was also slow and couldn't turn quickly. Major Kong fired his missiles at the ship's engine ports and then spun away as the alien weapons tried to track him. Behind him, the missiles exploded against the ship's hull, causing damage, but not destroying it. All around the asteroid belt, similar attacks were happening. Human fighters darted in and out like angry wasps, stinging the larger ships and then disappearing before they could be swatted down. Engineer, One Ho Chun watched the battle from his orbital defense platform. He had spent months disguising weapon batteries as space debris. Now it was time to reveal them. Platform 7 to all hidden batteries. He spoke into his communication system. Begin Phase 2 activation. Across the solar system, what looked like dead satellites and broken ship parts suddenly came to life. Hidden weapon platforms that had been drifting silently through space revealed themselves and opened fire on the Vorthek fleet. The alien commander, War Prime Gorth, stood on the bridge of his flagship. He had conquered 17 worlds for the Vorthek Empire. Every previous enemy had either surrendered immediately or fought a brief, hopeless battle before being crushed. This was different. War Prime, his tactical officer reported. We are taking casualties. The humans have weapons hidden throughout this system. Our senses cannot distinguish them from natural objects until they attack. Gorth looked at the tactical display. Red dots marked damaged Vorthek ships. There were too many red dots. How many ships have we lost? He demanded. 12 destroyed, 28 heavily damaged. The human fighters are using tactics we have never encountered. They attack in coordinated groups and then disappear before we can respond effectively. Captain Myung Song commanded the human naval forces from her flagship, the converted cargo vessel Defiance. She had studied every naval battle in human history, looking for tactics that could work in space. All ships execute Plan Turtle, she ordered. The human fleet had been hiding on the far side of Earth's moon. Now they emerged not to fight a direct battle they couldn't win, but to use guerrilla tactics perfected by centuries of naval warfare. Her ships were smaller and faster than the Vorthek vessels. They used the planets and moons as cover, striking at enemy ships that had separated from the main fleet and then retreating before reinforcements could arrive. Target that damaged cruiser, Captain Song commanded. All ships concentrate fire, and then withdraw to rally point 3. The human ships swooped down on the wounded Vorthek vessel like sharks attacking injured prey. Their weapons were less powerful than the aliens, but concentrated fire from multiple ships could still cause serious damage. The Vorthek cruiser tried to turn and fight, but it was already damaged from the asteroid trap. Human missiles and energy beams tore into its hull until the ship lost power and began drifting helplessly. One more enemy ship neutralized, Captain Song reported. All ships withdraw as planned. Before the other Vorthek vessels could respond, the human fleet had disappeared behind the moon again. War Prime Gorth was beginning to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. The humans weren't fighting like any enemy he had faced before. They didn't line up their ships for honorable battle. They didn't panic when they were outnumbered. Instead, they fought like creatures that had been preparing for war their entire lives. Send a message to the High Command, he ordered. Request immediate reinforcement. These humans are not like the other species we have conquered. His communication officer looked confused. War Prime, what should I tell them about our casualties? Gorth looked at the tactical display again. In the first day of battle, he had lost 30 ships and suffered damage to dozens more. The human fleet was still largely intact, hidden somewhere in this maze of planets and moons and asteroids. Tell them we have encountered unexpectedly fierce resistance. Tell them these creatures fight with coordinated tactics and show no fear of death. Tell them. He paused, searching for words that would make the High Command understand. Tell them we may need the entire Imperial fleet to conquer this single world. Back in the asteroid belt, Major Kong's fighter squadron regrouped for another attack. They had lost 8 pilots in the first assault, but they had also damaged or destroyed more than 20 enemy ships. All squadrons prepare for attack pattern 7, came the command from control. The enemy is trying to regroup. We need to keep them separated and confused. Major Kong checked his fuel and ammunition. He had enough for 2 more attacks, maybe 3 if he was careful. Around him, his fellow pilots prepared for another run at ships that could destroy them with a single hit, but they weren't afraid. They were fighting for their families, their world, their species' freedom. The Vorthek had expected humans to Surrender when faced with overwhelming odds. Instead, they had awakened something that the galaxy had never seen before. A species that refused to accept defeat, no matter what the odds. The first battle was over. Humanity had drawn first blood against an empire that had never before suffered a defeat, but this was only the beginning. General Donhai Lim stood in the underground command center beneath Seoul. Above him, the city burned. Vorthak ships had been bombing population centers for 6 months, trying to break humanity's will to fight. They had failed to understand what they were dealing with. "General," reported Lieutenant Sang-Ho Park, "the aliens have landed ground forces in 12 major cities. They're using the same tactics that worked on the other worlds they conquered." General Lim looked at the tactical displays showing cities around the world. New York, London, Tokyo, Mumbai. All of them now had Vorthak troops moving through the streets, expecting the human population to surrender in terror. "How are our people responding?" the general asked. Lieutenant Park smiled grimly. "Sir, the aliens are learning that human cities are not like the cities on other worlds. Every building has been prepared for defense. Every civilian knows how to fight." Dr. Dijin Choi entered the command center carrying a tablet full of data. She had been working on biological warfare programs since the invasion began. Her job was to find ways to hurt the Vorthak that didn't require matching their superior technology. "General, I have good news," she said. "The biological samples we recovered from destroyed Vorthak ships have given us what we need. I've developed 3 different pathogens that specifically target their physiology." She activated a holographic display showing microscopic organisms. The first one attacks their respiratory system. The second disrupts their nervous system. The third one is designed to break down their protective equipment. General Lim studied the display. "How do we deploy these weapons?" "We've been adding them to the water supplies in occupied cities," Dr. Choi explained. "The Vorthak troops drink water from local sources because they didn't expect biological warfare. Within days, they'll start getting sick. Within weeks, they'll be too weak to fight effectively." Lieutenant Park activated another display showing street-level combat footage from around the world. "Sir, you should see what's happening in the occupied zones." The footage showed Vorthak soldiers moving through a city street. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons that could blast through concrete walls. They looked unstoppable. Then the attacks began. From windows, doorways, and rooftops, human fighters appeared. They fired rockets and threw explosives, then disappeared back into buildings before the aliens could respond. When the Vorthak tried to follow them, they found themselves in maze-like buildings full of traps and ambush points. "The aliens are used to occupying cities where the population hides in fear," Lieutenant Park explained. "They've never dealt with an entire civilian population that fights back." Another video showed Vorthak troops trying to secure a subway station. Human fighters had turned the underground tunnels into a network of fortified positions. Every tunnel entrance was booby-trapped. Every platform had hidden weapon caches. The aliens found themselves fighting not just soldiers, but shopkeepers, teachers, students, and office workers. People who had never been in the military but had learned to fight because their freedom depended on it. "What about their air support?" General Lim asked. "That's where it gets interesting," Lieutenant Park replied. He showed footage of Vorthak aircraft trying to support their ground troops. Human fighters had modified civilian drones with explosives, creating swarms of kamikaze weapons that crashed into alien aircraft. "They can't use their heavy weapons in the cities without destroying the infrastructure they want to capture," Dr. Choi added. "And every time they try to use precision strikes, our people adapt and find new ways to hide and fight." General Lim walked to a wall map showing the global situation. Red areas marked Vorthak-controlled territory. But even in the red zones, resistance continued. "How long can we keep this up?" he asked. "As long as we need to," Lieutenant Park answered. The Psychological Warfare Division has been monitoring alien communications. They're reporting massive casualties and requesting reinforcements from other systems. Dr. Choi pulled up another display. "The biological weapons are working better than expected. Vorthak troops in occupied cities are suffering from disease. Outbreaks. Their medical teams can't understand what's happening because they've never encountered biological warfare designed specifically for their species. A communication officer approached them. General, we're getting reports from resistance. Cells in Paris. The aliens tried to set up a command post in the city center. The local fighters surrounded the building and turned it into a trap. When reinforcements arrived, they found themselves under attack from every direction. General Lim nodded. What happened? The aliens abandoned the position after losing 60% of their forces. They're pulling back to defensive positions outside the city. This was the pattern repeating around the world. The Vorthak had expected to occupy human cities the same way they had occupied cities on other worlds. Move in with overwhelming force. Set up command posts and wait for the population to submit. Instead, they found themselves fighting a war unlike anything in their experience. Every human city had become a fortress. Every civilian had become a potential soldier. Every building had become a potential battlefield. Sir, Lieutenant Park said, there's something else. We've been intercepting Vorthak military communications. Their field commanders are requesting permission to use weapons of mass destruction against civilian populations. And the response? Their high command is refusing. They want to capture Earth's population as slaves, not kill everyone. But the field commanders are getting desperate. They're losing troops faster than they can replace them. Dr. Choi showed them a medical report. The biological weapons are spreading through their ranks faster than we hoped. Entire Vorthak units are becoming combat ineffective due to illness. And because they don't understand biological warfare, they can't develop effective countermeasures. General Lim looked at the reports of urban fighting from around the world. In every occupied city, the same story was playing out. Alien troops, who had expected quick surrender, were instead facing months of grinding warfare against an enemy that refused to give up. The key is making them fight for everything, he said. Every street, every building, every room. Make the cost of occupation so high that they start to question whether Earth is worth conquering. Lieutenant Park activated a communication link to resistance leaders around the world. All units, this is command. Continue current operations. The enemy is taking casualties they cannot sustain. Every day we hold out is another day their empire bleeds resources. In the ruins of what had once been downtown London, a small group of human fighters watched Vorthak patrols from their hidden position. The aliens moved carefully now, knowing that any building could hide enemies, any street could become a killing. The humans waited patiently. They had learned that patience was a weapon the Vorthak couldn't match. The aliens wanted quick victories. Humans were prepared to fight for years if necessary. When the patrol reached the predetermined position, explosives hidden in the street detonated. Sniper fire came from 3 different buildings. Rocket-propelled grenades flew from concealed launchers. In 30 seconds, the engagement was over. The human fighters disappeared back into the maze of ruined buildings, leaving behind destroyed alien equipment and casualties that the Vorthak could not afford. This scene was repeated thousands of times every day in dozens of cities around the world. The Vorthak Empire, which had conquered 17 star systems through quick, decisive campaigns, found itself trapped in a war of attrition against a species that seemed to grow stronger the longer the fight continued. War Prime Gorth received daily reports from his ground commanders. Each report told the same story: heavy casualties, fierce resistance, requests for more troops and better equipment. But the Vorthak Empire was already stretched thin across their conquered territories. Every ship sent to Earth was a ship taken, away from maintaining control over other worlds. For the first time in his career, Gorth began to wonder if the Empire had made a mistake. Perhaps these humans were not worth conquering after all, but it was too late to retreat now. The Empire's reputation depended on crushing human resistance. If they failed here, other species might begin to think the Vorthak could be defeated. The siege of Earth continued, with neither side willing to give up, but slowly the balance was shifting. The attackers were learning that conquest was not always possible. while the defenders were learning that even the strongest empire could bleed. Commander In Ho-yoon walked through the captured Vorthak ship with careful steps. His team had spent 3 months studying every system, every piece of technology, every detail that could help humanity win the war the ship had been damaged in. The battle for Mars orbital stations and forced to make an emergency landing. Instead of destroying it, the aliens had abandoned it when human ground forces surrounded their position. Now it was humanity's greatest intelligence prize. "Commander," called Dr. Kyung-Suk Lee from the ship's engine room, "I think I've figured out how their faster-than-light travel works." Commander Yoon joined her at the massive engine array. Dr. Lee had been working non-stop to understand alien technology that was centuries ahead of human science. "The principle is actually simpler than we thought," she explained, pointing to crystalline structures throughout the engine. "They use these crystals to fold space-time. If we can figure out how to manufacture similar crystals, we could build our own FTL drives." This was the breakthrough humanity had been hoping for. The ability to travel faster than light would change everything. Instead of being trapped in their own solar system, humans could take the war to the Vorthak Empire. "How long until we can?" "Build a prototype?" Commander Yoon asked. 6 months, maybe less if we can get more alien technology to study, Dr. Lee replied. "But Commander, there's something else. I've been analyzing their communication systems and ship records. The Vorthak Empire isn't as strong as they want us to believe." She activated a holographic display showing star maps and fleet movements. According to their own records, they're stretched thin across 17 star systems. Most of their ships are old and need constant maintenance. The fleet attacking Earth represents almost their entire military force. Commander Yoon studied the data. What about their conquered worlds? That's the interesting part. The records show that several worlds have attempted rebellions in the past year. The Vorthak have been pulling ships from garrison duty to maintain control. Every ship they sent to conquer Earth is a ship they can't use to control their empire. Captain Woo-jin Kim entered the engine room carrying a data tablet. He commanded the Special Forces teams that had been conducting raids on Vorthak supply bases throughout the solar system. "Commander, you need to see this," he said, activating his tablet. "We just completed a raid on their main supply depot near Jupiter. We captured their base commander alive." The tablet showed video of the interrogation. The Vorthak officer, War Prime Gorth himself, sat in a human detention facility. His usual arrogant demeanor had been replaced by something that looked almost like fear. "He's been very cooperative," Captain Kim continued. "Apparently, the Vorthak have never had one of their war primes captured alive before. He's willing to trade information for better treatment." Commander Yoon watched the video. War Prime Gorth was explaining Vorthak military doctrine, fleet, positions, and the locations of key systems within their empire. "What's the most important information he's given us?" Commander Yoon asked. "The location of their homeworld and the fact that their entire government is centralized there," Captain Kim replied. "If we could strike at their capital system, it would paralyze their entire empire." Dr. Lee looked up from her work on the alien engines. "Commander, with what I've learned from this ship, I think we could modify some of our vessels for FTL travel within 3 months. Not many ships, but enough for a small strike force." Commander Yoon considered the possibilities. A strike at the heart of the Vorthak Empire while they were still trying to conquer Earth. It was exactly the kind of bold move that could turn the entire war around. "There's more," Captain Kim said. "War Prime Gorth has revealed that resistance movement's on. Several Vorthak-controlled worlds have been growing stronger. Apparently, our declaration of war and our successful defense have inspired other species to fight back." He showed them intelligence reports translated from Vorthak military communications. Uprisings on 4 different worlds. Supply convoys being attacked. Garrison forces requesting reinforcements they couldn't get because all available ships were committed to the Earth invasion. "The Vorthak Empire is facing something they've never dealt with before," Dr. Lee observed. "A multi-front war against enemies who refuse to surrender." Commander Yoon walked to the ship's bridge and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, other species were fighting for their freedom, inspired by humanity's resistance. The war had grown beyond Earth's solar system. Captain Kim, how many ships could we convert for FTL travel? He asked, based on Dr. Lee's estimates. Maybe 20 ships, small ones but fast and maneuverable. Perfect for hit-and-run attacks on Vorthak supply lines and communication networks. And if we could coordinate with the resistance movements on other worlds, Captain Kim smiled, then we could turn the Vorthak's own strategy against them. Instead of one overwhelming attack, they'd face dozens of smaller attacks across their entire empire. Dr. Lee joined them on the bridge. Commander, there's something else in the ship's records. The Vorthak have been using their reputation for invincibility as much as their actual military power. Many worlds surrendered without fighting because they believed resistance was impossible. But we've proven that resistance is possible, Commander Yoon said. Every day we hold out against their invincible fleet, we make them look weaker too. The rest of the galaxy. A communication officer approached them. Commander, we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Cho. He wants to discuss Operation Prometheus. Operation Prometheus was humanity's plan to take the war beyond Earth's solar system. Using captured alien technology and intelligence, human forces would strike at the heart of the Vorthak Empire while continuing to defend. Earth. Commander Yoon activated the communication link. Admiral Cho's face appeared on the screen, broadcasting from the Orbital Defense Command Center. Commander Yoon, Dr. Lee, Captain Kim, I've been reviewing your reports on the captured technology. How confident are you that we can build FTL-capable ships? Very confident, Admiral, Dr. Lee replied. The technology is complex, but not beyond our ability to replicate. We'll need to strip components from the captured ship, but we can probably outfit 15 to 20 vessels for interstellar travel. And the intelligence from War Prime Gorth? Captain Kim answered, extremely valuable, sir. He's provided detailed information about Vorthak fleet positions, supply lines, and the locations of resistance movements on conquered worlds. If we can coordinate our attacks with the existing rebellions, we could seriously damage their empire's ability to function. Admiral Cho nodded. Then Operation Prometheus is approved. Commander Yoon, you'll lead the first strike force. Your target is the Vorthak supply depot in the Kepler system. Dr. Lee, you'll oversee the ship modifications. Captain Kim, you'll coordinate with resistance movements on the target worlds. Commander Yoon felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Humanity's first interstellar military mission would be under his command. The fate of not just Earth but potentially dozens of worlds would depend on the success of Operation Prometheus. Admiral, he said, when do we launch? As soon as the ships are ready. Every day we delay is another day. The Vorthak have to reinforce their positions or crush the rebellions on other worlds. The communication ended, leaving the three officers alone on the bridge of the captured alien ship. Around them, the technology that had once been used to conquer worlds would now be turned against its creators. Dr. Lee returned to her work on the engines. I need to get back to the modifications. Every ship we can convert is another weapon we can use against the Vorthak. Captain Kim checked his tactical reports. And I need to establish communication with the resistance movements. If we're going to coordinate attacks across multiple star systems, we need to make sure everyone is ready. Commander Yoon remained on the bridge, looking out at the stars that no longer seemed impossibly distant. Soon, human ships would travel between those stars, carrying the war to an empire that had never faced coordinated resistance from its victims. The Vorthak had made a fatal mistake when they decided to conquer Earth. They had awakened not just humanity's capacity for war, but humanity's ability to inspire others to fight for their freedom. The tide of the war was about to turn. Fleet Admiral Jae-seung stood on the bridge of the first human interstellar warship. Through the viewports he could see 20 other vessels in formation, all equipped with faster-than-light drives built from captured Vorthak technology. It had been 18 months since the Vorthak invasion of Earth began, 18 months of brutal warfare that had transformed humanity from a peaceful species into a galactic military power. Now they were ready to take the war to the enemy's home territory. "Admiral," reported Dr. Haewon Young from the weapons control station, "all ships report ready for Operation Final Strike. The Genesis Protocol weapons are armed and targeted." Dr. Young had spent the last year developing humanity's most devastating weapons. Not just military hardware, but psychological warfare tools designed to destroy the Vorthic Empire from within. "What's the status of the resistance movements?" Admiral O asked. Colonel Minho Sao activated a holographic display showing the Vorthic Empire. Red dots marked 17 star systems under alien control. Green dots showed active rebellion zones. "Sir, we now have coordinated resistance on 14 of the 17 conquered worlds. The uprisings began after our first interstellar raids 6 months ago. The local populations realized that the Vorthic could be defeated." Admiral O studied the tactical display. The plan was ambitious beyond anything humanity had ever attempted. Instead of attacking one target, they would strike simultaneously across the entire Vorthic Empire. "Colonel, confirm that all resistance leaders are ready for synchronized operations," he ordered. Colonel SCO spoke into his communication system, sending encrypted messages across dozens of star systems. "All resistance cells confirm readiness, Admiral. They're waiting for our signal." Dr. Young activated another display showing the Vorthic homeworld. "Admiral, intelligence confirms that the Vorthic High Command is still concentrated on their capital planet. If we can neutralize their government center, their entire empire will collapse into chaos." The Genesis Protocol was Dr. Young's masterpiece of psychological warfare. Instead of simply destroying Vorthic military forces, it would attack the foundations of their society. Computer viruses that would crash their communication networks. Biological agents that would force them to abandon their major cities. Propaganda broadcasts that would turn their own conquered populations against them. "How long do we have before they realize what's happening?" Admiral O asked. "Based on their communication patterns, about 6 hours after we begin the attack," Colonel SCO replied. "But by then, it will be too late. The simultaneous rebellions will stretch their remaining forces so thin that they won't be able to respond effectively to any single threat." Admiral O walked to the main view screen showing the stars ahead. Somewhere among those distant points of light was the Vorthic homeworld, where the aliens who had tried to enslave humanity were about to learn the price of threatening the wrong species. "All ships, this is Admiral O. Today we finish what the Vorthic started when they rejected our offers of peace. Today we show the galaxy what happens to those who choose conquest over cooperation." His words were broadcast to every ship in the fleet and transmitted back to Earth, where they were heard by billions of humans who had survived the brutal invasion. The Vorthic Empire has conquered 17 worlds through terror and overwhelming force. They believed that no species would ever be strong enough to resist them. They were wrong. The fleet engaged their FTL drives. Space folded around them as they jumped toward the Vorthic homeworld, carrying weapons and strategies that would end an empire. Today, we don't just defend Earth, we liberate every world the Vorthic have enslaved. We make sure that no other species will ever have to face what we faced. The journey to the Vorthic homeworld took 12 hours. During that time, Colonel SCO coordinated with resistance movements across the Empire. At precisely 0800 Standard Earth Time, rebellions erupted on 14 worlds simultaneously. On the factory world of Kepler 442b, slave workers seized weapons factories and turned the guns on their Vorthic overseers. On the mining planet Gliese 667c, underground resistance fighters emerged from hidden bases to attack garrison forces. On world after world, the oppressed populations rose up in coordinated revolt. The Vorthic military, already weakened by their failed invasion of Earth, found themselves fighting wars on multiple fronts with no reserves to draw from. "Admiral," reported the communication officer, "we're receiving distress calls from Vorthic military commanders across the Empire. They're requesting emergency reinforcements that don't exist. Admiral O smiled grimly. And their homeworld? No. Indication they're aware of our approach, sir. Their attention is focused on the rebellions. The human fleet dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Vorthek home system. Before them lay the heart of an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for 3 generations. All ships, execute Genesis Protocol, Admiral O commanded. Dr. Jung's weapons activated across the fleet. Computer viruses, transmitted through the Vorthek's own communication networks, crashed government systems and military coordination centers. Biological weapons, delivered by stealth drones, forced the evacuation of major population centers. Propaganda broadcasts, sent on all frequencies, told the Vorthek population that their empire was collapsing and their government had failed them, within hours. The Vorthek homeworld was in chaos. Their rigid, centralized government structure, which had been a source of strength during their expansion, became a fatal weakness when it was attacked systematically. Admiral, Colonel CO reported, Vorthek military communications are reporting complete breakdown of command authority. Local commanders are abandoning their posts. Some are even surrendering to the human fleet. The final phase of the operation began when Admiral O's ships entered orbit around the Vorthek homeworld. But instead of bombarding the planet, they broadcast a message to the surviving Vorthek leadership. This is Fleet Admiral O of the Earth Defense Forces. Your empire is finished, your military is defeated, your conquered worlds are free. You have 2 choices: surrender unconditionally and accept human protection, or watch your entire civilization collapse into anarchy. The response came within an hour. The Vorthek High Command, what was left of it, agreed to total surrender, but Admiral O wasn't finished. He activated the long-range communication system and sent a message across the entire galaxy, on frequencies that every intelligent species would eventually receive. To all civilizations listening to this transmission, the Vorthek Empire, which conquered 17 star systems and enslaved billions of beings, has been defeated. Their fleets are destroyed. Their government has surrendered. Their conquered worlds are free. He paused, letting the magnitude of that statement sink in across the galaxy. The Vorthek made a simple mistake. They thought that offering peace was a sign of weakness. They thought that a species willing to negotiate was a species willing to surrender. They learned too late that humans offer peace not because we cannot fight, but because we choose not to fight unless we must. The message continued, reaching alien civilizations that had heard about the Vorthek invasion of Earth and wondered what had happened to the humans who had dared to resist. Any species that follows the Vorthek path of conquest and enslavement will face the same fate. But any species that comes to us in peace, seeking cooperation and friendship, will find humanity ready to work together for the benefit of all. Admiral O looked out at the Vorthek homeworld, where the lights of cities flickered uncertainly as their civilization tried to comprehend what had happened to them. The age of the Vorthek Empire is over. The age of cooperation begins now. In the months that followed, human ships carried aid and assistance to the worlds that had been liberated from Vorthek rule. Species that had been enslaved for generations learned to govern themselves again, with human advisors helping them rebuild their civilizations. The Vorthek themselves, stripped of their military power but not destroyed, were given the choice to join the new galactic community as equals rather than masters. Many chose to accept human protection and guidance, learning for the first time in their history what cooperation meant, and across the galaxy, other species that had heard humanity's first peaceful messages and ignored them now sent their own. Messages to Earth, not threats or demands, but offers of friendship and alliance. The last transmission from Earth had become the first message of a new era. An era where strength was measured not by the number of worlds conquered, but by the number of species willing to work together for peace. Humanity had kept its promise. They had wanted war with the Vorthek, and they had delivered extinction. Not of a species, but of an empire built on conquest and slavery. The galaxy would never be the same.